Pinning doesn't just slow down your opponent's army. Done right, it wins you the game before a single unit is destroyed. And the scary part, most players are using it completely backwards. Here's what I mean. So, the question isn't whether you're going to kill your opponent's units. The question is whether you're going to make his units incapable of doing anything useful first. That's the difference between playing Bolt Action and winning Bolt Action. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how pinning works mechanically under the version 3 rules, why the way most players think about it is wrong, and how to build your play and list around pinning as a primary win condition. So let's get into it. So first, let's make sure we're on the same page about how pinning works in version 3. And if you've been playing for a while, pay close attention here. A couple of things have changed. Every time a unit is fired at by an enemy and suffers one or more hits as a result, place a single marker next to it. Now, note what I said here. It doesn't matter how many hits land, whether you score 1 hit or 6 hits on that unit, it picks up 1 pin marker for being fired at by your unit. The number of hits is irrelevant. What matters is that the target was hit at least once. Heavy weapons are the exception. Artillery barrages, heavy mortars, these can score 2 or more pin markers in a single firing action. So a well-placed barrage can pile on the pins very quickly. And here's one that catches people out with HE. Friendly fire. If one of your own units accidentally hits another of yours, those hits still generate pin markers, exactly as if it were an enemy unit that caused them. So watch your firing lanes, especially with templates. Right, so what does a pin marker actually do? Each pin marker on a unit reduces its morale value by 1. That's the core mechanic in version 3, and it's worth being precise about. You're not modifying the dice roll, you're reducing the morale value, the number you need to roll under. Let's use the troop quality table so we have an actual number to work with in version 3. Inexperienced troops have a base morale of 8. Regular troops have a base morale of 9. And then veteran troops have a base morale of 10. Take a regular infantry section, morale 9, put 2 pin markers on it and its morale drops to 7. Put 4 pins on it and the morale drops to 5. The rule cap morale at a maximum of 11 and a minimum of 2. You can't reduce a unit below 2 regardless of how many pins are on it. Now, here's how pinning plays out in the game. A unit with 0 pins executes any order it's given automatically. No test is needed. The order activates and the unit acts. That's your ideal situation for your own units. Keep them clean. The moment a unit has 1 or more pin markers on it, everything changes. When a unit is given an order, the player must now take an order test before the unit can do anything. You roll 2d6, compare the result against the unit's modified morale. That's the base morale minus the pins. If the result is equal to or lower than the modified morale, the unit passes the test. Now, here's the critical bit. If the unit passes the order test, it immediately discards 1 pin marker and then executes the order you gave it. Passing the test is what removes the pin the test passes. If the unit fails the order test, it does not discard any pin markers and it's forced to execute a down action, whether you intended that or not. Let that sit for a second. Failure keeps every single pin in place and takes away a useful activation. Your opponent's unit has done nothing except crouch and stay pinned, and on your next turn you can fire at it again. There's more than one rule to know. If the player rolls a double 6 on an order test, it's not just a failure. The unit immediately rolls on the foobar table. It has panicked, misunderstood its orders or something, has gone catastrophically wrong. And here's why this matters. Every pin marker reduces the morale value, which means more 2d6 results can become failures. The more pins on a unit, the more often it's forced to test and the more opportunities there are for a double six. High pin counts and foo bars are directly linked. Finally, the routing rule. If a unit ever accumulates pin markers equal to or greater than its original morale value, it is automatically and immediately destroyed, routed from the field. For inexperienced troops, that's 8 pin markers, regular troops 9, veterans 10. And as the rule notes, you'll usually destroy a unit by shooting before it reaches that pin threshold. But for small teams and sport weapons, it's worth knowing. So, if you remember one thing from this section, in version 3, failing an order test removes no pins and forces you down. The only way to clear pins is to pass a test. Every pin you add makes the next test harder. Stack enough pins and your opponent is spending the whole game trying to recover one marker at a time. Now, let me show you the pattern I see consistently at tournaments and club games. You're not killing the unit, you're neutralising it. And in a 6-turn game with objectives to hold, a neutralised unit is worth more to you than a dead unit often is. This is where most people get it consistently wrong. They measure success in the shooting phase by casualties, and they should be measuring it by the activations denied. So let me show you what that pin focus game plan actually looks like in practice. The goal is simple. Identify your opponent's most dangerous unit, the one that, if left unpinned and functional, will take your objective or destroy your key asset, and dedicate your first 2 turns to pinning it down. Not destroying it, pinning it. Here's why this works better than going for kills in the early game. In turns 1 and 2, most units are still at range, shooting at distance is at its least effective usually, kill probability is low, you're likely landing 1 or 2 hits rather than enough to wipe out a unit. But 1 hit is all you need for a pin marker, so even inefficient shooting, the shots you were going to take anyway can be directed to create pins on the right targets. By turn 3, your opponent's key unit has 2 or 3 pins on it. Its morale could have dropped from 9 to 6 or 7. Every turn it has to pass an order test just to do anything useful. And every failed test means it goes down with no pins removed and wastes the activation. Every passed test removes just 1 pin. So if it has 3 pins, it needs 3 successful tests to clear them, spending 3 activations doing nothing but recovery. Meanwhile, your other units are moving freely, taking objectives, applying more pins to other targets. The game plan isn't to destroy your opponent's army, it's to make his army incapable of stopping yours. And here's the version 3 element that makes this even more powerful, the foo bar risk. When a unit is sitting on 3 or 4 pins, its modified morale might be at 5 or 6. Any 2d6 total above this is failure, and double 6 is still double 6. The probability of rolling double 6 doesn't change, but the higher the pin count, the more order tests that unit is forced to take, and the more chances there are for a catastrophic foo bar roll. You're not just degrading your unit's effectiveness, you're increasing the chance it breaks completely. That's not just suppression, that's a game plan. So, how you decide which unit to target for pinning. Here's the framework I use at tournaments. So, before I shoot each turn, I ask 3 questions. Question 1. Which enemy unit, if it activates freely this turn, causes me the biggest problem? Not which unit is the easiest to kill, not which unit has the fewest models, which unit, functioning without restriction, threatens my plan the most. That's your pinning priority, not the softest target, the most dangerous one. Question 2. How many pins does that unit already have? If it's already got 2 or 3 pins on it, adding another is compounding the problem. Its morale is already reduced, another pin makes the next order test even harder to pass. You're building on existing pressure. If it's sitting clean at 0 pins, a single hit immediately forces an order test next turn. That's the gateway to the cycle. One pin from an otherwise low efficiency long range shot can start the whole process. Question 3. Can I realistically get at least one hit on it? In version 3, remember, the number of hits doesn't matter. One hit equals one pin marker regardless of whether you score one hit or 5. So even long range, low dice firing action that lands a single hit is worth directing at your priority target. The threshold for generating a pin is one hit, not many hits. The mistake I see repeatedly players take at the highest. A player has a great shooting unit, let's say a medium machine gun in a solid firing position. Their opponent has 2 units in range, 1 unit with 3 models left, and 1 full strength infantry section of 10. 9 times out of 10 that player targets the 3-man unit. They want the kill. They want to remove something from the table. Sometimes this can be the right tactic. However, and I understand the logic, it feels efficient. Remove a unit entirely and it can't do anything. But here's the problem. That 3-man unit was already largely ineffective. You're spending your best shooting asset to finish off something that isn't really threatening you. Meanwhile, that 10-man infantry section is about to advance on your objective, fully functional, 0 pins. What if instead you'd put pins on that 10-man section? Now, when your opponent tries to advance it towards your objective next turn, he's rolling 2d6 and needs to score maybe an 8, a 7 or less because his regular section has dropped from morale 9 to morale 8 or 7. A total of 7 or less on a 2d6 is roughly a 58% chance he might pass, but if he fails, goes down, removes no pins and has wasted the activation, and on your next turn you shoot at it again, another pin. Now he's testing at morale of 6, he passes, moves 1 pin, drops back to morale 7. He's spent 2 turns trying to climb out of a hole you put him in on turn 1. The mistake I see repeatedly. Players take the highest probability kill shot rather than the highest value pin shot. Sometimes those are the same unit, often they're not. Now let's talk about building a list that makes this game plan work. If pinning is going to be your strategy, you want units that reliably put hits on targets at range, because hits equal pins, not kills, hits. Medium machine guns, the MMG is your best pin generation unit. It fires multiple dice, it has good range, and every successful hit generates a pin regardless of how many dice connect. An MMG at range is almost guaranteed to generate at least 1 hit per turn, and that's 1 pin per turn on whatever you target, consistently, reliably, turn after turn. Mortars. The medium mortar is underrated in most lists because it needs a turn to range in. Once ranged in, it hits reliable, and the heavy mortar can generate multiple pin markers per hit. A ranged in mortar parked on your opponent's most important unit for 3 turns is a pin generation machine, and mortars are relatively cheap. You're spending a small number of points on a unit that can neutralise something far more expensive. Artillery and barrages. In version 3, artillery barrages can generate 2 or more pin markers in a single action. A barrage that lands on a target doesn't need to destroy models. If it puts 3 pins on an infantry section in one action, that unit has gone from morale 9 to morale 6 and is spending most of its time trying to clear those. Smaller, cheaper units. Here's the counterintuitive list building insight for pin focused play. You want more activations, not more lethality. Small, cheap units can give you more order dice in the bag. More order dice mean more activations. More activations mean more shooting phases. More shooting phases means more opportunities to put pins on targets. A 5-man rifle section generating a hit most turns at a reasonable range and adding a pin every time it fires. That consistent output is more valuable to a pinning game plan than a larger, more expensive unit trying to kill things outright. Remember that small, cheap units are more easily killed, so protect them. The list building principle is this: optimize for constant hits at range, not maximum lethality. Lethality is your opponent's game plan, pins are yours. So if you remember one thing from this video, remember this about pinning. Failing an order test removes no pins and forces down. The only way to clear pins is to pass a test, and every pin you add makes the next test harder. Stack enough pins on a unit and your opponent is spending the game trying to recover. Every turn he passes, he removes just one pin. Every turn he fails, he removes nothing, wastes the activation. You're not killing his army, you're making it work for you instead of him. Stop shooting for kills, start shooting for pins, and the wins will follow. Now, if you want to see pinning in action in a real game, the battle report is on the screen now, somewhere. And if you're new to Bolt Action and want to understand the fundamentals first, the other beginner's guides is the other card. Well, it'll be that side. Take care, guys. Now, why not like and subscribe down below while you're at it to be instantly updated when the next strategy video drops. Take care, guys. Talk to you soon.